when I reflect on what we've done, it's take something really personal that was a gap that we identified and to make it more accessible to people. So, like, craft is one thing. There are like a million things out there that people struggle with. And so we've gone really focused. And I think that blending the digital, asynchronous, and the live aspect, I just think it's really powerful.
Welcome to Career Coaching Secrets, the podcast where we talk with successful career coaches on how they built their success and the hard lessons they learned along the way. My name is Davis Nguyen, and I'm the founder of Purple Circle, where we help career coaches scale their business to 7 and 8 figures without burning out. Before Purple Circle, I started and scaled several 7 and 8 figure career coaching businesses myself and consulted with 2 career coaching businesses that are now doing over $100 million each. Whether you're an established coach or just building your practice for the first time, you'll discover the secrets to elevating your coaching business.
Hey everyone, welcome to another episode of Career Coaching Secrets podcast. I'm your host, Regan, and today's guest is Jane Macky. Jane is the founder and CEO of We the Village and a certified craft coach who's been pioneering a radically compassionate approach to addiction recovery. With a background in philosophy, psychology, and digital strategy, Jane blends science and heart to lead the only clinically proven online program for families impacted by addiction. What's unique about her work is that she doesn't coach the person in addiction directly. Instead, she empowers one motivated family member with evidence-based tools to create lasting change. And it's working. Her programs are backed by the NIH and NIDA, and now they're also being used to train professionals. And it's a pleasure for me to have her on the podcast today. Welcome to the show, Jane.
Thank you. Thanks for having me.
Jane, so tell me a little bit more about what inspired you to become a coach and then start your own coaching business.
So as you mentioned, I was working in digital advertising. I was part of a startup that was pioneering mobile advertising. So we were creating some of the first iPhone apps for big Fortune 500 companies. And while on the one hand, I was helping these companies connect to clients to sell more cars and cheese and underwear, I had a relationship with a colleague and who was a mentor, someone that I admired a lot. And it became clear to me that he was struggling with addiction. As we were working late one night on a pitch for a big client, I go to order dinner thinking, hey, we're going to be here a long time. He pulls out a substance to fuel him through the night. And I start to get the sense that something was wrong here. So while we're trying to connect our customers, clients with cheese, underwear, and cars, I'm going online to try and, find out what to do, friend, cocaine addiction, and met with crickets. And that was the first sort of moment when I started to realize, hey, there is a big gap here. And it wouldn't be for, some years beyond that till I found a method that really inspired me. I tried a lot of things. I went to Al-Anon, Maranon meetings, a sort of 12-step approach for families. I went to talk therapy, but most of them had me leaving feeling sort of disempowered and feeling bad about the care that I had for this person that was really struggling. So it wasn't till I found the method that I now work with, which is community reinforcement and family training, or craft. It's an evidence-based approach. It's an evidence-based therapy, actually. And it's really, really compassionate. It works by having families sort of reconnect and use their influence to shift harmful behaviors and sort of learn skills to support long-term addiction recovery, and sort of just removing sort of the stigma and sort of the scare factor of it and sort of normalizing it. We know that 1 in 2 Americans have a loved one struggling with addiction today. So it's much more normal than we might think. But it was in finding this approach after years of sort of struggling and watching my now husband, who's 10 years into recovery, struggling, that I realized, hey, there's something here. And it wasn't accessible in a book at that time. So I wanted to bring it online for families. And so I became certified in it. I was mentored by the creator of this evidence-based approach. He was a researcher and a therapist. So really great at those things, not necessarily really great at trying to get the message out there in the way that it needed to be. So when I learned how simple some of these concepts were, it inspired me to do everything I could to get it out to people.
Like when you brought it online, that's when the coaching part starts in, right?
Yeah, so we started by running group sessions over Zoom. That was kind of, and we tested a couple different ways of trying to make it more accessible. It started in a group online setting, and over time, we've sort of revised it to be a multi-tiered coaching sort of approach. So the first tier is really about just running through an online curriculum. So essentially, you're getting coached by online videos, myself, and online videos. And the next tier is sort of group coaching. So that's a little bit more expensive because you're having live interaction with a certified coach, or the top tier is one-on-one coaching, again, alongside this curriculum. And I think that's one thing coming from this digital background is, especially with an approach like craft, it makes it a lot more cost effective, and it gets a lot more out of our time if we can have our clients learn a little bit online and then come into a session, and then we can move forward, especially with a topic like addiction, where we're trying to change the narrative. We're trying to have them think about things differently. And we're working with a very distressed client often. So that's something that's been really helpful to blend that sort of asynchronous and synchronous live aspect for us.
And the craft method, is it similar to an intervention or kind of different?
Yeah, great question. So we could call it an intervention. It has 9 core sort of themes, or like little sessions that we run. So as a coach myself, I'm trained to deliver these kind of 9 core topics and what I would call like skills. So I'm working with a client to upskill them in these 9 different areas. And those are things like communications, like techniques. So being able to communicate positively, to reconnect with their loved one, using positive reinforcement. How do we rebuild sort of self-efficacy with their loved one who's struggling with addiction? How do we allow for natural negative consequences, sort of these behavioral principles that sort of shift the substance use and the harmful behaviors with a loved one by using the relationship of the concerned person that we're working with. And one core sort of part of it is, how do we talk about treatment? How do we talk about the fact that maybe you really need some professional help? And maybe it's traditional professional help. Oftentimes when people say intervention, they think of rehab. So like that could be an option, but it could also be working with an addiction counselor or a therapist, or attending, a meeting, or people have different sort of things that might be appropriate given how severe the situation is and what the person is willing to do. But it's more compassionate in that we're helping the family with skills so that they can collaborate with their loved ones. So an intervention historically, and what you've probably seen on HBO if you've ever watched that series, is more of a confrontational approach. And to someone going through that, it can feel like an ambush. It can feel very coercive. I've worked with clients where it's really driven a wedge in the family, and years later, there's still resentments and disconnection. And craft is really about reconnecting and reaffirming relationships. Like that's why family members have influence, because we care about what each other thinks, and bringing that care together in a way that's collaborative and empowers the person to recover, as opposed to sort of enforcing it. And it's like this, it can have the same outcome, right? Getting a person to become willing to enter treatment, but it's a totally different sort of way for the family to move forward together and to really support recovery. And yeah, it's very different.
Interesting. And with your coaching business right now, who you're working with typically are the family members, not the person directly. You
Yeah,
you almost maybe never have interaction with a person, or
correct. So yeah, we work with one person who's concerned about their loved one and motivated to make change. Oftentimes, they're seeking help before the loved one. The sort of definition of addiction is kind of to continue using a substance despite the harm that it's creating in your life. So, what we know is often that person wants to make a change. Maybe they're even trying to make a change, but it's really hard and they're not succeeding or not succeeding enough. And it's really scary when they realize that they're like, I don't have control over this. And that is really, really hard. So they're kind of stuck in that space. The family member, they're, a little bit more, in present mind, have more of their functioning together, though they're also struggling because it's really hard to see someone go through that you love. But yeah, they're willing to do the work, and so they're a great client. What we deal with a lot though is that they've been fed all this misinformation, right? Like that you need to kick the person out, that they need to hit rock bottom, and those sort of things. So we do a lot of work educating them in this more compassionate and evidence-based and effective approach. But yeah, we work with one family member, and we don't need the whole family to buy into this, and we just need one person motivated that has enough sort of interaction with their loved one to start implementing changes in their behavior that can change the whole sort of outcome for the family.
And how do people find you, or how do people find We the Village and reach out to you in terms of like marketing?
Yeah. So that's kind of our biggest focus at the moment. So we've been in business since 2018, or really like the kernel of the idea started in 2017. We've spent a lot of time perfecting our programs and our approach. We've run them through clinical trials funded by the National Institute on Drug Abuse. We have efficacy data and validation on what families can expect. And that was really important to us because when we were going through this, the addiction world is really scary and it's often really opaque. And there's often people asking for a lot of money and you don't know why and what result you're going to get. This is proven, and so it was really important for us to do that. But the other part of our mission is getting this out there to people. So if we sort of stopped here, we would just be the same as the previous researchers, right? Like, here's a great method. Let's write about it. Let's prove that it works. But like, and so what? So now we're moving. We really made a transition when we wrapped up our full-scale clinical trial last year to move into this mode of we really need to get it out there. And we've had customers since we got started. We're available online. People can purchase this. The state of Colorado actually funds it for people in Colorado. Yeah, now we're trying to get the message out there. We don't spend on advertising at this point. We have quite a big social presence on Instagram. A core partner for us is treatment providers. So the people that are, the rehabs, the outpatients, the therapists, trying to get them to be aware of this. And I think it's a big awareness play as well because, craft is a great acronym. Like it's easy to say, right? But it also is like, what is craft? Are we playing with knitting or like drawing or like what sort of crafting are we doing? So we have a big job to just even get awareness on what this method is and why it's important, and sort of going against this cultural narrative of that people struggling with addiction are morally corrupt and all of that. So yeah, it's something that we are actively working on, and it's really, I think, for us about partnerships.
Mm-hmm. So basically, the focus is right now in trying to grow more awareness around it. And so far, it's been mostly through referrals or people that knew about it already.
Yeah, also people will search online and come across us. We know that for every person that comes to our program, probably at least 2 or 3 people will find out about us through them.
And apart from like growing the audience, do you have any other goals that you're working towards with your coaching business right now that you'd like to share?
Yeah, I think in the last 2 years, so we started direct to families, and then in the last 2 years, as Dr. Myers, the creator of Craft, has sort of continued to take steps into retirement. We worked with him to capture him on video doing his professional training. So we can work directly with families, but we also recognize and we can bring it online, right? So those are two huge parts of scaling the approach and accessibility to families. But the next piece is that there are a lot of professionals out there that also don't know about craft in the industry. So they're still thinking, hey, let's send families to 12 steps and let's send families to interventionists. But we really want them to know about craft. So we have begun training them through our online program, a very similar model to our family program. We really believe in this sort of balance between digitally recorded content to get information out there and then like balance with live access to real experts. So we have a model for training professionals, and that's kind of our next piece. We're also studying that in a clinical trial funded by NIDA. We're about halfway through that, so we can train about another 120 professionals in craft through this funding. And yeah, that's another sort of core strategy of getting craft out there in its highest sort of fidelity to the families that need it to change the way families can get through addiction recovery together.
And what are some investments that you've made so far in your business that you feel like actually have made a good impact on the business and have helped it grow over time?
So we've spent all this time running clinical trials to get data. And there've been moments where I was kind of like, well, Kraft already has data, and like we could just say Kraft has data that came before us, and we're doing Kraft, so therefore we get that sort of outcome. And these clinical trials have taken years. Sometimes there are delays, like we did a pilot to sort of prove feasibility, and then there was following on funding from that to the full scale trial, and it takes years. And I think there have been times when I've questioned, was that worth it? But getting to the end of it last year and getting the outcomes and the data, I see now when we're talking to potential referral partners that we can answer all their questions, like any concerns, any reasons why they might, want to sort of poke a hole in what we're doing, what we're able to offer. There are other people out there sort of offering craft, but there's no one offering it in the way that we do with, the founder, the creator of craft on our team, with all of the data, with access to certified clinicians and the method, or certified coaches. And so I think, sitting here in 2025 and we started in 2017 seems like a long time. I think I see that paying off now, and I'm glad. And I think people understand the intentionality behind it as well, like that we really don't want to just add noise to the system, like when there's already a lot of people sort of trying to grab money and sort of provide services. I'm not saying that they're not trying to do the best things for their clients, but I think that people are not always informed in the best way possible. And so having the data, having the outcomes, knowing that what we have works, knowing that it's all about connection and not disconnection, I feel like 5 years or however long, but it's all paying off.
Mm-hmm. So it was a lot of investment, you'd say, in what right now serves more as credibility for craft. And how long has craft been around?
Yeah, so it's been around for about 40 years, and it's been studied in over 11 well-controlled clinical trials, including our own. So it's been around a really long time. It's written up in books. There are a lot of people out there that have been trained in it. Not enough, but there are people, but they're not enough sort of also trained to the fidelity. And people, just the general public and even the professionals in the space don't have access to it. It is often in sort of professional, master's programs and substance use disorder sort of counseling programs. It'll be like a little footnote in one session, of a whole semester on substance use. So that's also something we want to change as well, like getting into the curriculum so professionals are aware of it. But it's definitely a long game, and it's a commitment that we have to making sure this is out there and available to families, because we know that it works and that it's better than the alternatives.
Interesting. So you'd say that there was already some, like a very good amount of research. You've just added more for your own business as well to add more credibility in it. Is
Yeah,
there?
well, ours is on our program. So ours is saying, hey, we know that craft got those outcomes in sort of individual therapy in many cases. But if we bring it online, if we have this curriculum, if we pair it with like group coaching, do we still get the outcomes? And so we're the only online program in craft, or the only sort of formal program in craft, that can say that this program actually does get those outcomes.
Oh, I see. So you had to prove that it works online as well, just as it was before doing it
Yeah.
online.
Yeah.
Then definitely worth the investment. Is there something that you wish you had known first before you start scaling your business, that is like an unexpected lesson learned, or even an expected lesson learned?
I think that when families come to us, sometimes they're a little resistant to some of the messaging in craft because they've heard all this, like I mentioned, detach from your loved one, like they need to hit rock bottom, like kick them out, those sort of things, like tough love. I think when we work with families, they sort of instantly get that craft doesn't do any of that. That craft says like stay connected, be positive, like reinforce and reward them when they're doing healthy things. And I think family members kind of get that. And it's like in their gut, like it was in mine when you start hearing this different narrative and you're like, oh, this feels good. This feels like it makes sense. I should try and help them. Like I want to help them. But I found that professionals often it kind of hits them at their core and they're like, oh, I don't know about this. Like, for example, like a word or a concept in this space is codependency. And we don't use the term codependency. It's a label. It sort of has negative connotations. It makes me feel like, if you're saying I'm codependent for caring about my loved one, I'm bad and I shouldn't care about them, when it makes all the sense in the world that you're watching someone struggle, that you want to help them. And a lot of professionals like find that really hard. They're like, hey, codependency is a thing. It's not a DSM diagnosis. And so I'm realizing that some of the concepts in craft are more radical to professionals in the way that they've been trained, and that we probably need to do a bit more work in getting them on board. And again, some of them get it right away, but I'm seeing that it's causing more rub than I expected. And I think it's like a very simple concept that families can play a positive role in recovery alongside their loved one. But in some ways, because there's this cultural narrative that we've inherited around it that we have to overcome, so we're not just battling like awareness of it, we're battling also like a totally other narrative that people sometimes want to cling on to.
Yeah, and I have to say that even other coaches that I interview sometimes do have to face that cultural rejection, meaning a lot of people sometimes don't believe in coaching. For example, do you need a coach for your career? Do you need a coach as an executive? Do you need a coach, I don't know, for leadership?
Yeah.
Oftentimes, I've gotten the feedback that that seems like a nice to have or like a luxury, or but not always, or maybe in the early years it was mostly for the elites, and right now it's something that is become more common, but there's always that narrative that you might not need it. So yeah, I think that even in other
Or is there something wrong with you if you need it? I don't know.
yeah, and that too. So it is also what I'm saying is also in other spaces of coaching
Yeah.
that seems to be the case. And eventually I think that is going to change. So you're battling with two different issues, like obviously the awareness part and also the cultural aspect of it. Is there any other challenge? What would you say is the biggest challenge that you're facing when it comes to scaling further your coaching business and your impact?
One other challenge we have is we're a small team and there's a lot to do. So we're running a clinical trial right now. We also, have an increasingly thriving client base, professionals and families that we're working with. And a lot of our team does some coaching and, other parts of the business. So yeah, it's just prioritizing and focus and backlogs of things that we're like, we should change this on our website, and so it's just, yeah, the time and capacity.
and looking into mostly like expanding your team further, or is that something that is more in the horizon?
We have, ability to bring on like interns and that sort of thing, which can be helpful. We do work with contractors. That's an easy way to sort of scale a little bit without, having the full time. And yeah, hopefully as the business grows, we can bring on more full-time people because we were able to do that in the last year and it's made, an absolute world of difference. So yeah, I think that would be the goal, keep scaling and justify the need for more team members. Yeah.
Great. And is there any final advice you'd give to other coaches in a similar space who are looking to scale their impact?
I guess, when I reflect on what we've done, it's take something really personal that was a gap that we identified and to make it more accessible to people. So like craft is one thing. There are like a million things out there that people struggle with. And so we've gone really focused. And I think that blending the digital, asynchronous, and the live aspect, I just think it's really powerful. I wouldn't have our programs work any other way. Yeah, so I think those are some things.
Thank you. And thank you so much for coming to our podcast today. For anyone who wants to find you or connect with you, they can go into your LinkedIn account, Jane Mackey. Apart from that, they can also go into the website courses, wethevillage.co.
Just wethevillage.co. Yeah.
Wethevillage.co.
And then
Cool.
you can find everything there. Yeah.
And is there any other way to connect, or these are the two main ways?
Yeah. If you want to reach out over email, hello@wethevillage.co is a great one. And we are on Instagram as well. And love to have you join us there.
Thank you.
Same name.
Thank you so much, Jane. It was a pleasure having you on.
Thank you.
That's it for this episode of Career Coaching Secrets. If you enjoyed this conversation, you can subscribe to YouTube, Spotify, Apple Podcasts, or wherever you're listening to this episode to catch future episodes. This conversation was brought to you by Purple Circle, where we help career coaches scale their business to 7 and 8 figures without burning out. To learn more about Purple Circle, our community, and how we can help you grow your business, visit joinpurplecircle.com.